Hey, thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about proportions and problem solving. And you're probably going, oh no, problem solving. I know that's code for word problems. And you're right, it is. We're going to do word problems. But let me assure you, first of all, number one, these are going to be fairly easy to set up. But number two, this is a really, really important skill to be able to set these kinds of problems up. So take these seriously, do the practice. These ones are going to hold you in really good stead. If you can do these kinds of problems, they'll help you a lot in life, trust me. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up proportions, and we're just going to be given some sort of a rate. This to that is the same as this other thing to that other thing, and then one of those things is going to be missing, and we're going to set up a proportion to solve it. And so what I like to think about it is I'm going to have two cases. So let's see, get my pen working. Case one, and then case two. And these two cases are going to be like identical situations. They're going to be equal to each other, and they're going to be ratios. So I need to figure out like what's the top part of the ratio and what's the bottom part of the ratio. And so I'm going to write that down. In this case, it takes Hannah 30 minutes to type 4 pages. So we're saying there's a ratio of minutes to pages. So let's do that. Let's put pages on top. So pages on top, and then minutes on the bottom. Ooh, my U went a little funky there. So I'm going to make a ratio. And so there's two cases. The first case, 30 minutes to 4 pages. So 4 pages on top, 30 minutes on the bottom. I could have done it the other way around. I could have put the pages on the bottom and the minutes on the top. That would work just fine as long as I do it the same for both cases. For the second case, it says find how many pages can she type in 4.5 hours. So pages on top, we don't know how many pages, so that's our variable. The number of pages, we'll do an N for number of pages, and then 4.5 hours. Okay, can you see any problems with this setup? I mean, it's a proportion, we've got one unknown, two ratios, two fractions equal to each other. Seems like this is all ripe for solving. But what mistake did I make? I did make a mistake. And here's what I'm going to do to illustrate the mistake I make. I'm going to put in the units. So remember, the first thing I wrote was the 4, and that was 4 pages. Units is what the 4 stands for. It's the number of pages. And then the second thing I wrote was 30, and that was 30 minutes. The 30 stands for minutes. And then N, I made up the N, but it stands for the number of pages in the second case. So that's pages again. And then 4.5 hours. And that 4.5 represents the number of hours. You see a problem now? Notice that the denominators, the bottom parts of my ratios, my fractions, are not the same thing. One is minutes, the other is hours. That's a huge problem. That is the most common, kind of the most tricksy mistake that people make when they're doing proportions, especially when we're dealing with word problems and we've got words and it's confusing and awkward and we're going from one thing to another. The only thing we have to do here is either turn my minutes into hours or my hours into minutes so that we're talking about the same thing in both cases. I either want pages per minute or pages per hour. I can't have one be one thing and the other one be something different. Now, it would actually be easier to change my minutes to hours because 30 minutes is 1/2 or 0.5 hours. So that would probably be the easiest thing to do. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to change my 4.5 hours into minutes. So let's think about that. 4.5 hours is how many minutes? Well, 60 minutes per hour. So if I multiply, I put a decimal point in there, I shouldn't have. I multiply 60 times 4.5. So 0, this is a little multiplication trick, right? When you multiply a line by 0, you don't have to actually do a second line, you just 0, and then we'll just go straight to the 60. 6 times 5 is 30, and then 6 times 4 is 24, plus the 3 is 27. And then how many decimal places are there? Well, there's one decimal place, so we'll put a decimal point there, and that's 270. So 270 minutes is the same as 4.5 hours. Okay. Now, I'm going to cross off the 4.5 hours and put 270 minutes in its place, and now I'm talking about the same thing in both cases. It looks a little crowded to me, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem. It's a little bit confusing, so I'm going to rewrite the problem over here. 4 pages to 30 minutes equals n pages to 270 minutes. Now I'm going to cross multiply. That's how I solve proportions. I think you guys are good to go on those. 30n equals 4 times 270. Let's see, that's 540. That's 1080. Okay, then we'll divide by 30 on both sides. And we're left with n equals, let's see, that's 36. So n is the number of pages, and we think Hannah can type 36 pages in 4.5 hours, or 270 minutes. That sounds right to me. We can think of it as there are 8 half hours in 4 hours, so there's 9 half hours, so 9 times 4 is 36. And so that works out. There's a lot of, this is a super powerful tool for finding out real-world answers and real-world relationships. But generally speaking, it should make sense. Oh, and I'm about to make a huge mistake. Let's not do that. So what's the answer? The answer isn't n equals 36. And why isn't it n equals 36? Well, it's not n equals 36 because there's no n in the question. The question says how many pages can Hannah type in that larger amount of time, and the answer is 36 pages, not n equals 36. So if you get a word question, you need to give a word answer. So that's my final answer. Okay, let's do another one. It takes 9 square feet of floor space in a classroom for every student in the class. If the school converts a 21 by 15 conference room into a classroom, how many students can the new classroom accommodate? So again, we're going to talk about cases. And case 1, we may have to adjust this, but let's just think about case 1. Case 1 was a ratio of square feet to students. And it said 9 square feet of floor space in a classroom for every one student. Now case 2, it's a little bit confusing because it says we have a classroom that's 21 by 15 and how many students. So we're asking the question, what is the number of students? But do we know the number of square feet in this new classroom? And the answer is not yet, but we're about to because we can do multiplication. The area of a room is the length by width, length times width. So in this case, the area would be 21 times 15. And I can do that on my calculator if I'm not feeling very clever. And I get 315. So I have 315, an area of 315. Okay, so now I can cross multiply. And notice that the 21 and the 15 were feet, And the top number that I put in my ratios, I use feet per student, so feet on top, students on the bottom, were square feet. So I couldn't use the 21 or the 15. I had to turn that information into area, which is in square feet. So now the units are the same. Now I can cross multiply. All right, so 9 times n is 9n, and that equals 315 times 1, which is 315. Let's see. We can divide by 9. And on my calculator, I'll do that again. 315 divided by 9 is 35. So n equals 35. Again, 35 is n equals 35 is not the answer. We go back to what the question asked. How many students can the new classroom accommodate? The new classroom can accommodate 35 students. And that's just basic question answering skills. You always turn the answer to the question, turn the sentence with the question back into the answer. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do 2 more. These are tricky. Pause this and see if you can set this one up. I'm going to go a little bit faster on these last 2. So I want you to try these on your own on a sheet of paper. All right, local property taxes are figured at a rate of $1.45 in tax for every $100 of house value. So we've got tax being compared to value. And in case 1, this is the basic rate, which is 145 to 100. And now we've got a question, how much tax for a home valued at 72,000? And this is absolutely how you calculate taxes of this kind. I should point out that taxes aren't the same everywhere you go, so this is just an example of a particular tax rate, probably an old example. So 100 times n equals 1.45 times 72,000. When the numbers get that big, I get out my calculator. At this point in the class, I'm not worried about you knowing how to multiply decimals. It's still a good thing to know how to do that, but at this point we are moving beyond that, and we'll use a calculator for long problems like this. So let's see, it's 104,400, and then we'll just divide by the 100 next to the n, and n equals 1044, and now we remember that this is the property tax, and the tax is $1,044. So we're going to give our answer in words rather than with the variable. Okay, a small order of McDonald's French fries weighs 68 grams. So let's see, there's 10 grams of fat. So the fries are 68 grams, and the fat in the fries is 10 grams. And so there's our comparison. That's case 1. This is the small. We could say this is the small. So instead of calling it case 1, we can say this is small. And then in case 2 is the super size, which I don't know if that's still a thing. Is it still a thing at McDonald's? Super size French fries weigh 170. That's the fries that weigh 176 grams. How many grams of fat are there? So the fries are on top, 176. The fat is on the bottom. Say F for fat. And then we'll cross multiply. F equals 1760, and then we'll divide and we get 25.8823. So F equals 25.8823. Notice that that's a decimal that keeps on going. It might repeat itself eventually, although it kind of looks like it does eventually start to repeat itself. So that's a non-terminating decimal. We don't really care about after the first, tenth of a gram or hundredth of a gram of fat, how many thousands and millions of grams of fat there are. So we're going to say about 25.88 grams. And if we want to be complete, we can say there are and grams of fat in these supersized French fries. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and please do practice these problems. These, the only way to get comfortable with this, with all these words, is to do a bunch. Have fun.